Attaboy. I'm going to start working the Arsenal into more and more content here on the CBP Media Network. Okay, so where do you want to start here? I'm sure you have some banger stories. Not at all a slow week in terms of notable news.
No,
the world over.
Today, I don't have much to say about this, but it looks like the Treasury Department was hacked. It looks like by Chinese hackers. They were able to gain access. But what are they going to get out of that? Is that when the next sale of bonds is going to come out? Or
all these guys are doing. I looked at the key log. All they're doing is hitting Control V.
over and over and over again, 35 trillion times.
Wait a minute.
So, like what? I mean, I don't know.
Who cares? Like the Treasury.
Exactly.
Yellen noted today. Janet, big fan of the CBP. I know that for a fact. I sent her a T-shirt. Noting that the 2024 outlays to Ukraine are done after this recent 2.5 billion.
Surprising the timing of that.
Very.
Given who's going to be sworn in like
very.
But the Z-Man is coming to Canada and asking for, or not just Canada, but the rest of the world asking for more.
Is he going to bring like a couple of Ziploc bags for all the guns we confiscated a while ago?
No, fatigues. He's going to give us fatigues.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Personal collection.
Got it.
Game worn and signed.
Game worn. Send it to what's the name of that grading company? You
or whatever. Put it behind glass. It's a 10 plus.
PSA 10. PSA 10.
So the big story this week, though, I think was the H1B visa fiasco.
Yeah. Oh yeah, quite a fiasco.
I don't know. Like,
the H1Bs. My understanding is it's basically equivalent to LMIAs here in Canada. And
yeah, that's a good way.
They've caused some social division here. We've talked about them before. I've read a lot about this on Twitter. I said I made my last comment on this, but I guess since you brought it up, I'll talk about it a bit.
I didn't realize. Were you?
Well,
what was your last comment on it? I'm curious.
I don't even know. I just think my big beef. Well, I'll tell you what my big beef is. Okay, let's give some background on this first. I think Vivek and Elon talking about how we need to be skimming the top 1% of talent from places like India and African countries and whatnot, and bringing them to the United States. I think that's a fair point, and I think that the U.S. has more potential to be successful in that endeavor than almost any other country. They've done a great job bringing those people in the past. My big concern is much like the concern I have for Canada. And you can say whatever you want, Joey, that's racist. You only care if they're black or brown. I don't care about that. I got black and brown friends. I say this all the time. Like, I played basketball for my whole life. 50% of my friends are black. It's not about that. It's about, when you try and get the best 1% of people, that's a really admirable and advantageous thing to do for a country. And when it works, you get superpowers like the United States, right? They skimmed off the top of Europe. They skimmed off the top of India. They skimmed off the top of the African countries, China, you name it. Like, they got everybody for the last 50 years, 100 years, whatever it's been. Maybe since World War II, let's say, so 60 years. They've turned themselves into a military and economic superpower. You can debate, discuss on the edges, if that superpower is intact or if it was done the right way, or if it's, a bit of a man behind the curtain issue or situation. Maybe not, whatever. The numbers say that they are the superpower right now, and they've been the superpower since Bretton Woods, right? So great. The problem I have is that you've basically done this skimming for so long that the top 1% of people that you're bringing over are going to be gradually decreasing in quality. And I'm not saying decreasing in quality in terms of, well, this person is, dumb, too dumb, they're going to leech off society. That's not true. Like, if you get the top 1%, they're always going to be productive. The issue is that at some point you're running up against old stock Americans of every color, of every race, every creed, every religion. Is going to be Spanish Americans, Black Americans, brown Americans, whatever, Chinese Americans. I guess Asian Americans would be the PC term. I don't know, but whatever. You're going to run up against people who are having suddenly to compete for jobs that used to be domestic jobs in, I don't know, service industries, some low-level manufacturing, stuff like that. Suddenly they're competing globally because in an attempt to bring over people to help the American economy, we're bringing over people who are, let's say, middle of the pack in terms of potential output, economic output. They're never going to be doctors and engineers, but they're also not going to be banging cans together in the park. They're going to be somewhere in between. And that's the backbone of an economy. You need those people. That's your biggest, that's a big part of your tax base. It's a big part of your social cohesion mechanisms. And when you introduce a conflict like that, I've said this before, you are asking for trouble, because when you have a multicultural society that's been broadly successful, like the United States has for a long time, you bring fault lines that to that point have been non-existent to the surface. And they are religion, creed, their race, their political stripe, they're whatever, right? There are tons of these things. And to suggest that you need, there's a couple of really good tweets from guys who are attacking Patrick Bet-David, attacking Elon, attacking all these people who are endorsing H1Bs being a huge part of the American economy. Like, you keep on saying top 1%, but when I look at your H1B visa applications, or H1B visa invitations, I guess would be the more apt term, what I see are mid-tier jobs that Americans used to just get no problem. And you're saying you can't hire them now and getting these guys for cheaper. It's ultimately a question of labor cost and trying to drive labor costs down to continue this unfettered and, like I said earlier, rudderless and ultimately, I think, meaningless GDP growth and bottom line growth and all these things. And H1B visas are just they're the sort of soup du jour when it comes to what's debatable. But at the core of this problem, much like many other problems, is that the money is failing. And it's not about anymore, being able to sustain a middle-class lifestyle. It's like, I need this job or I'll be homeless. And that's what these people feel. And I can't blame them for feeling that.
It's the people that are there that are talking about it, though. The people that are pushing for this.
Yeah, the people at the top are pushing for it. Yeah, for sure. And by the way, like, it's funny to see all these like posts of the H1B applications that are just completely insane. Like, pickleball instructors at some community centers are H1B visa applicants. Like, you couldn't find an American pickleball instructor. Exactly, right. And so, like, there's questions about the legitimacy, much the same way here, that I don't need an Indian teenager to come stir up my double-double. I can get a Canadian teenager of any color. There's Indian Canadians too. I don't need a new Indian immigrant to come and do that job. And the reason that they come to do that job is because the government subsidizes the wage at minimum. And, at the sort of other end, the scammier end, is they come here knowing that if they get that job and are able to cement themselves, they can bring their whole family over.
Yeah.
And Trump ran on deportations. And I don't think that's one of the things policy. Okay. And I think he also ran on rehabilitating and re-energizing the American manufacturing sector and middle class. And this is the opposite of that policy.
Correct.
That flies in the face of this. And so I think, to tie a bow on this, there's going to come a time where, technocrats like Elon and Vivek are going to realize that in politics, there are things that simply cannot be done because they are not politically feasible, popular, or winning strategies. They're just not. And talking about H1B visas are like, it's very difficult. Boomer brings up a good point. I think I was mentioning this. I think I was noting this anyway, but I'll mention his words. It's the people that are losing jobs to H1B visa entrants don't have other opportunities. They're not trainable. They're in their mid 40s. They don't have university degrees or whatever. Right. And it's hard. The thing is that they've already given everything they could to these jobs. Now, there is a case to be made that, and there's a book about this or an article about this, that America is at this point now where what they've done is encourage like micro niche mediocrity, generational micro niche mediocrity, where every middle tier family in a flyover state, earns $150,000 as a family income, lives in 1,000 square foot house, has a decent pension, goes out for dinner once a month. Everyone gets a gift on Christmas and birthdays, but it's not a PlayStation 5. And, that's kind of a sustainable lifestyle. And what it does is it reinforces this idea that, you can continue working as a screw turner, as an assembly line worker, as a middle tier economic contributor, and continue to have that lifestyle. And so there's never a need to grow into something more, to separate yourself from the menial tasks of labor America. Maybe that's not the case. But, to suggest that the fix for all these things. And the way to do this is H1B visas is I think wrong. And there's another visa mechanism that is already being used. I think it's the H0 or 0A or something like that. Someone can look this up in the comments.
This is stuff that's well beyond me. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah, but I mean, I did a bit of digging because I do find this interesting. I've talked about it on the show a bunch and whatever.
But Joey, the environment for this, I mean, I don't mean to cut you off.
Political environment?
Sorry?
The political environment?
Yes. Yes. It's wrong. Number one, they're not technocrats. Technocrats are is an individual that excels and is a savant in their particular field.
You don't think Elon's a technocrat?
For what? For bringing in people that are for certain things, yes.
I mean,
he's not the minister of electric cars. He's not the minister of sending people to space.
No.
He's doing something else. So could be a technocrat, but he's not a technocrat in this particular
Okay, let's
sense.
call him a techno supremacist or something. I don't know.
They're supporters of Donald Trump, and they are prominent supporters, and they have been rewarded for their patronage and for doing some dirty work doing a lot of the legwork along the line. So
they ran razors and brought money to the campaign for sure.
Yes. And that was a great thing for Donald Trump, and he's going to reward him, and so he should. But Donald Trump was elected, remember, America first.
Yes.
Right? This was the thing we heard, America first.
Yeah.
This thing is not America first.
How much have you heard?
First.
Okay, so let me ask you, what has Donald Trump said about all this? This is about a 3-4 day old debate at this point. What has he said?
I don't know if he said even a thing.
Nothing.
So it verifies what I just So I think he's probably talking behind the scenes. If I were to guess, and he's fucking grilling these guys and saying, "You guys are fucking wrong."
I think
the way you're approaching this.
I think he's doing. Yeah, I think you're right.
And as business people, they are 100% right to do this. They are taking advantage of the tools that are available to them. But keep in mind, just because they're doing this as business people and business individuals and doing what's right for their corporations, doesn't mean it's right for the greater whole, society as a whole, the country as a whole. It's not. So it's good for the small individuals, but globally or nationally, it's hurting people. There are people that can graduate. They're told their whole lives, you have to go to school. You have to go to university or college, get a fucking degree in whatever field. And let's say it's a STEM degree. And in the end, you come out and they can't even get a job in the field that they want because they are competing against somebody that is going to be paid
it's a global competition for a domestic job now. Yeah.
At a time where they're trying to put tariffs on Canada and Mexico to say, we are going to be America first, and shit like this happens. The individuals that are talking about this, they really need to stop and understand they're not talking what people want to hear. They're making themselves look fucking ridiculous. They're finding shit on Vivek that looks really bad on Vivek.
Yeah.
Patrick Bet David, I remember not too long ago, I loved past tense to listen to. He did one thing, I wish I could say it, but he did one thing that went against everything he said. It was so hypocritical that I stopped listening cold turkey. And here it is now, he's getting grilled.
He's actually bitching about a community note on one of his tweets to Elon Musk right now.
I like that community note.
What a loser. He's such a loser. I want to mention one thing here because this is it's a sensitive topic. And man, I've been called some things over the last 2 years being in Bitcoin and talking about immigration. And I was a big mega guy in 2016 and I took a lot of shit. I was called a racist, a xenophobe, all these things. I'm none of these things. It's not about where people come from or the color of their skin. Like I said before, I've done a lot of things, worked a lot of places. I know a lot of people, and they're all different backgrounds. They're all different ethnicities and religions and races, and they're all lovely people. And when you get to know somebody, you find that no matter what your differences are, you're much more aligned and have much more in common with them on a human level than you don't. And there's tons of reasons why people act differently and behave differently. And, and Indians especially are getting a ton of shit here in Canada, here in the United States, because I think there's been a lot of people who are, lower quality people, not willing to come here and contribute. They come here and try and skim off the top or commit crimes and whatever. I think that's true. And it's not about race. It's like low quality people of all races, you know. I'll point to, for example, as an Italian guy, if you went to Italy and skimmed, you know, the sort of lowest sect of society and ended up with you know, Italian criminals, mobsters, whatever, and they came to Canada, you can't expect them suddenly to find God when they reach Canadian soil. Okay. They don't just suddenly change their ways when they have their first double. It's far from that. That person is a certain way and will always be a certain way. The same way that my dog is a certain way, the same way that my wife is a certain way. I'm a certain way. You're a certain way. It's not a racial thing. And there are groups of people who are taking a lot of shit, I think somewhat unfairly, because of this sort of wide net that modern countries are trying to cast. We've put ourselves in this situation. Like I said, it's unfettered, unimportant, broadly growth of this GDP number, and bottom line means something, means nothing. I don't know. It's a lack of reproductive and fertility numbers in modern economies. We're not having sex enough to pop out kids, and that's a problem. So we're importing people who, by the way, you know, you can say whatever you want. We're importing reproduction. We're importing this. We're importing that. Like, these people are going to have the same problems we have at some point. It may not be this generation, but it will be at some point. They will not be having kids either because it'll be too expensive. And as you keep going down this road, you wind up bringing people here that just don't share your values. Case in point, these protesters calling for the death of Jewish people or the death of Canada. Like, I've tweeted this before. What is the plan to have someone who came here for a better, quote unquote, better life, who's calling for the final solution? What is the plan to have them become a positive contributor to the economy and to the culture? If there is a path, I'm not sure that Canada or the United States in their current form can execute a strategy and a roadmap that gets them there. And the more we do this, the more we cause, breaks in social cohesion, and you get neighborhoods splintering off, and then it's provinces splintering off. Alberta, good example. Quebec, good example. Texas, Florida, you name it, good examples. Then it's entire groups of people, splintering off, regardless of state, regardless of traditional jurisdiction or traditional borders. It's no longer about that. It's about, this person is not the same as me. It's like, what kind of American are you? What kind of Canadian are you? You don't want to go down that road. But the more you embrace policies like this, the more you wind up with that being a potential outcome. And, to your point,
we have any recent examples for this type of policy in which that the government that first instituted maybe saying, we are revisiting it and reversing the course? Maybe Canada, for instance, did this recently.
Yet to do it. They've yet to do it. And also, I see that Miller is tweeting quite a bit, Minister Miller, about they didn't act fast enough on immigration. They haven't.
So imagine that. So you have a neighboring country. They haven't
acted at all yet.
But the thing I'm trying to get at is, at least the narrative is, we're not going to continue down this path. What I'm trying to say is, you have a neighbor.
It's not hypothetical for the states. Exactly. You
correct.
Example. Yeah.
And it's not ancient history. We're not looking at textbooks that were written decades ago. It's last few years. You can just look at call a neighbor. What the fuck's going on? Oh, this is happening. This is not the greatest of policy. Let's do something.
Yeah. It's difficult, man. These are difficult conversations to have. It's a difficult.
What has worked well? When the economy is humming along and you don't have enough.
How many times have we said this on this show? We've said this on this show a million times, that when you have a strong economy and people feel like they have upward mobility, you have no problems. Everyone is cooperating. Everyone's wearing the same jersey. Like, it's funny. I see, like, talk about a late Christmas gift. This fucking, like, I guess it's a soft launch from Carney, like 40 minutes before we started the show.
Well, what happened?
He's got like an op-ed in the Post, National Post or Globe Mail. I forget where. I'm gonna look right now.
He periodically does something like that, right?
It's terrible. It's literally one of the worst things I think I've ever seen. And I look at Carney, and it's an example of what you're saying there, right? Like, you can enact these policies if you understand that the economy has to be sailing. But this is a guy who's a hopeful for leadership at some level in politics in Canada, and he's talking about how this is the beginning of the article. It's around this point in the holidays where my thoughts turn to what I could do differently in the new year, about how I could be better. Some years I resolved to exercise more, to take up a new hobby, or to learn to play an instrument. In others, I resolved to be more present or not to speak ill of others. Sometimes our resolutions can feel especially important because we know a major life event is coming up, a graduation, marriage, or divorce, buying a home, or moving into retirement. Is this guy fucking stupid?
So out of touch with reality.
How
all the
fucking
people
retarded
out there that are
you have to be
fucking
to say
lining
that
up
kind
at
of
food
shit?
banks.
There are food banks. No one is worried about exercising more. No one is worried about taking up a new hobby. No one is worried about
retirement's coming around the
no
corner.
one is
It's like,
worried about
what should I
retiring,
do?
graduating with $1 billion in debt with a degree you can't use. No one is getting married and having kids. Divorce rates are at a high. No one can afford a home, and no one's retiring. The average age of a Canadian employee went from 41 to 44, something like that in the last 10 years. It's only going up. We've talked about this before. Like this is when you ask, this is the thing, right? When people say, and I know you're talking about the States, but it's happening here too. When people say this policy is good, you have to think, whether it's immigration or anything else, is the person who's proposing the policy, does this guy understand what Canadians, Americans, citizens of their jurisdiction are going through? No is the answer here. No, he doesn't understand. That's in the first paragraph. It gets way worse. The Canada should resolve to bring the Stanley Cup back to Canada. Retarded. There's no other word for it. I would love to see this guy run for politics. It would be an absolute gong show, like Comedy Central disaster. And like, whether it's H1Bs or whether it's LMIAs here, or it's, should we switch to all electric vehicles in 10 years? Should we tax carbon? Should we deport millions of people who are undocumented but working? Like I don't agree with Trump. We shouldn't deport all the people who are like doing jobs Americans clearly don't have a ton of interest in doing. Everyone points to the easy stuff, like, oh, I got a guy who's undocumented working on a farm. I don't want to lose that guy. And by the way, that guy, maybe he's contributing to the economy. Maybe he's working on that farm. He's putting food on the table for Americans, putting food on the table for his family. Like, that guy's not a criminal. Like, we have to start redefining some of these terms. We asked for this to become normal. And what you're asking for now is a tectonic shift the other direction when all the inertia is going the way that you intended already. These are hard things to talk about. And the H1B thing, it's one element of a broader conversation about how institutions can no longer serve citizens because things are changing so fast, about how there is no more domestic job market. Every job market is global. There is no more, I shouldn't have to compete to keep my family living a certain way, because the money doesn't allow for that mode of thinking any longer. There is no more of any of this. It's over now. All those things are changing, and the state is trying to adopt and protect, but it can't. It just can't do it. And I think slowly the state apparatus is starting to realize that we have to do something drastic. I don't know what that drastic thing will be, but I do think something is coming inside of 5-10 years.
Immigration is not something that should be stopped. I mean,
No.
I can speak with respect to Canada, because here in Canada, we haven't, I'm going to probably get grilled for this, we have an aging workforce. And so you still need
the workforce thing is huge. Yeah.
And I am of the camp. You still have to bring in a certain amount of people that come in here to work and to be productive and to potentially raise the next generation of Canadians. So like, you have to have that in order to maintain at least what we have here, or try to maintain what we have here. The temporary foreign workers and the students, that's something that's totally outside this immigration discussion I'm talking about. That's totally something different.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, do you know, back in the late 19th century, politics in Canada, very interesting that it was, and I think this was it, the left-leaning individuals wanted to close the borders to Canada and keep everything Canada first, kind of, so to speak. And they don't want to open up borders, and they want to, basically deal with Canadians and only Canadians. And it was the right wingers wanted to have more a globalist agenda. It seems like a century and a half later, it's kind of the reverse. People on the left seem to have more an assertion to opening things up, and people on the right want to close things down. I find it to be interesting how this flip-flopped that took almost 150 years, but even things that in the past 15 years, and I don't want to get into specifics so I get into trouble, but things flipped. even in the past 15 years about people, what they believed in the left, say 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's very different. And same with people on the right 15 years ago. It's very much different. So it's just a very dynamic world. And I don't want to take into because I'm making it into trouble, but this whole, I hope that Trump is able to sit these fuckers down and to straighten them out. And moving forward, nobody should be held on a pedestal and said that they're untouchable. If you fuck up, you fuck up. Yeah. And that's going to stay with you. That stain is going to be with you for the rest.
Do you think that there's like a globalist agenda? Like, it sounds like maybe you do. Like there's like we never go down this road, but like
not an agenda, so to speak. Some people want to have more open borders, or at least having, and then try to help out individuals, because I'll use Canada. We have a lot of resources here. We have a lot of wealth comparatively to other countries, right? Insert country name here. We're much better off. Why can't we make them, or try to at least improve their lives somehow with funding policy or funding programs? And it's being done. I'm not trying to say that's the right thing or the wrong thing. That's the idea that I see that is being done, at least trying to be played out. Now, I'm not trying to say that there's a plan or there's an agenda or whatever. That's just what some people have in mind. And I don't know what to say about that.
I'm not sure either.
There's nobody out there like, oh, we got to do this. And
there are some people out there who are definitely going, oh, we got to do this, and encouraging.
No.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's so many things that it's hard to predict what's going to happen next, and the amount of variables that are in play. It just, you're trying to get to an end result, but how you get there, there's no direct path. And good luck. There's so many. So, going to this WEF bullshit and all that. Like, I don't buy into that. Like, a lot of people do. I'm sorry. I don't think
it's that. I don't think it's that.
To me, like, a lot of people say,
what I do think to your earlier point, garbage. Yeah, what I do think to your earlier point, though, is like there are people like Elon and Vivek, and I think broadly, like American business owners, American corporation, the American corporation wants cheap labor onshore in America. Yeah. And so like there's
like I mentioned,
the agenda is not like we have to destroy the middle class to keep them obedient. No,
they want to be as profitable as possible.
Exactly. And so there's consequences for that way of thinking, right? The agenda is not, we have to, it's not like the old eat the bugs thing. Like that's whatever. But the agenda is profiteering, and profiteering has consequences. And so whether there's coordination about the consequences, whether there's coordination about the actual profiteering or the consequences of profiteering, it's indistinguishable to the person who no longer has a job and has to use a food bank. That's another problem, right? If it becomes indistinguishable, that's where you get issues with extreme, like domestic extremism, domestic violence, domestic uprisings. And there's a lot of people who think that we're on that road, right? This whole fourth turning thing, that people are going to lose faith in governments. They're not going to listen. They're not going to follow laws. They're not going to view the government as being in their best interest. That's when this starts. When people stop being able to determine what the difference is between a plot that's intentionally harming them and a plot that they are a third, consequence to.
The one thing I don't understand, though, would you say Vivek and Elon they at least have a decent head on their shoulders compared to somebody, the commoner?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
I would say like they were able to comprehend something, digest information, and come out with a rational thought. I can't understand how they decided to go down this path, knowing the political environment we're in, and knowing who was just. That's fucked up.
They don't care.
So their political careers should be ending right now.
I mean, Elon has no political aspirations, but Vivek probably does. And yeah, I agree that he torched.
See you later.
Bridge. Yeah, it's done.
It's true. It's too bad.
His tweets now all just get absolutely roasted. No matter what he posts about, they just get absolutely fried. He's done. That's salted ground now.
He's radioactive. Time to jettison him. It's too bad, because it would have been nice to have an individual that was young like him, who could speak the way he does on the team. But you fuck up, that bad,
Totally.
what are you going to do? How do you fix? There's no band-aid you could put on this. It's not like people are doing very well and food banks are just empty. There's nobody showing up to them, and people are able to pay out of the environment's different. It's a shitty time to be middle class or below.
Yeah.
And these guys are through their actions, they're shitting on those very people. People spend thousands of dollars to go to school to get a degree, and they come out and you're not able to fucking use it.
Can't work.
Because
can't work.
That is bullshit.
Yeah.
And even Tesla, somebody made a note that they have over 1,500 employees that are on the H1B visas. Yep. I'm not sure what that translates to, but that seems like a large number to me. I mean, maybe it's not.
You got to think if he's running Tesla the same way he's running Twitter with skeleton crews.
Yeah. So
and that's a big number. Seems like a big number.
Did you know that there's a statutory limit of only 85,000 H1Bs that are granted every year? But remember, 85,000 per year, but employers often receive approval to go beyond and above that limit. In fact, 800,000 applications were approved this year in 2024. So it's almost 10x this year. How are employers doing this, getting around this? I would love to know. I'm not sure what's the mechanism to get approved, who has to be approving it. Like if there's, you go above people's heads. I don't know, but things need to be investigated and find out why this is the case and why they're bringing in 10x the amount of H1Bs that are statutory limited to be granted in a calendar year. Yeah. That's fucked up.
Nothing new, Len. Like just there's always ways to exploit these systems for the gain of your company, gain of whatever. And you see it, like, again, not to just, I feel like we talked about this for too long, but
no, it's not only an interesting topic, it is a topic that is very prevalent today. People are pissed. I'm pissed at this, and I'm an American.
It does suck.
I see this.
It does suck.
I don't want to say it's abuse of the system. It's just overlooking the obvious what companies should be doing for national unity, national pride, and trying to boost the country as a whole. I get it, for profits. It works fine. But hopefully people moving forward, if they have an option to buy product A versus product B, and one has been using these visas to their advantage.
I say this all the time. What did I say on the show like a few months ago when I moved here to Dundas? Like everything here is a little more expensive. If I go downtown to get a coffee, it's $4 or $5. And I will pay that $4 or $5. I'll pay a little more for meat. I'll pay a little more for cheese. I'll pay a little more for whatever, because if I don't, I will get like a Century Initiative freak show in my town where everything is, temporary visas and temporary foreign workers. And it's not the kind of place that I want to live is all. And I think I'm entitled to that opinion, honestly. And I think a lot of people have that opinion and maybe don't know how to express it. And it comes out as this, sort of racially slanted, inflammatory. But I think there's something to that point. And you're talking about it, I'm talking about it. It's just you're asking for problems in society down the road if you keep going down this path, especially as quickly as it's happening. I don't think there's any question about that. So, yeah. Anyway, do you want to do one more story?
Roasted. You saw Trudeau got roasted at the ski resort in BC.
I hate that. I got a problem with that. I think that's dumb. Yeah, I think. Look, like you may disagree with the guy's politics, but to approach him in what looks like a parking lot or a ski hill, like what is that? It's not a ski hill. It's like it looks to me like it's at parking lot level. And tell him to, what did she say? Get the fuck out of Canada. Like, BC. Come on, man. Whatever. Like, just give me a break. Just you got better stuff to do with your time. It says more about you.
Did you hear the allegations? I don't know if there's any truth to it, but the fact that there was getting preferential treatment in terms of getting in the front of the ski lifts, and
he's the prime minister. What do you expect? The resort should give people their money back. It's not his fault. It's the resort's fault, I think, more than anything else.
I just, what? I'll leave it at that. I strongly disagree, and we'll just go from there, Joey. I think that's it for the show.
Okay. Listen, I gotta say, there's a couple hundred people here. I can't imagine that you don't have something better to do in between Christmas and New Year's, but maybe you're as tapped out as the rest of us are, and you just want to hang out and be with your friends Joey and Len, talk about some Bitcoin, talk about some Clown World stuff. So I appreciate everyone coming, and we'll see you next week, Monday, as usual. No Wednesday show this week again, and we'll resume our normal scheduling starting in 2025.
Yeah, I
looking forward to that.
Yarud, I forget how to pronounce his name. The guy.
Mellerud.
Yeah, I'm interviewing him this Saturday morning, so it'll be a tape delayed release for Wednesday next week.
Nice, love it. Thanks everybody. Take care. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon.
Don't be cock.